Hi guys, welcome back. So I've seen some people do these videos where they go on Goodreads and look at their most read authors, which I think is pretty interesting. I have been on Goodreads for quite a number of years, so not everything that I've read over the years is on there, but a good number of books that I've read, including things that I just added from the past. So I think it's kind of interesting. You can go into your stats and you can look at your most read authors, who they are, how many books you've read by them, and it's kind of interesting. It actually shows you your top 100, but what I'm going to do today is two things. The thing that I think a lot of people have been doing is talking about their top 10 authors and how many books they've read by them, so I'm going to do that. The other thing that I'm going to be doing is something that I got the idea from a while back, Amy's vlog about books, which if you don't follow her, you seriously should. I will leave a link to her channel down below because I just love her. She's got a pretty small channel, doesn't have a lot of followers, but I just love her content and I think she's very thought-provoking. Anyway, so she did this video where she looked at this. Then what she did is she went and looked at the diversity of the authors in her top 100, actually, not just her top 10, which I thought was pretty interesting, looking in terms of gender and race. Obviously, a lot of authors are male and are white, especially white. I do read a lot of women authors, but I just thought this was really interesting, and so I thought I would do this on here as well and talk to you a little bit about the diversity, or maybe lack thereof. And she made a point that I thought was really interesting, because while I have been working on reading more diversely, sometimes it's one book from an author. It's not an entire series or all of their books. And I watched this video of hers a couple of months back and it got me thinking, yeah, you know, that's a really good point. While I am starting to try to read more authors of color, why is it that maybe I'm only reading one or two books by them? There are authors of color who've written a number of books, and why is it that, yeah. Anyway, I thought it was a very interesting discussion video. If I can find it, I will link her video up above if you want to go check that out. But today, I thought I would go over my most read authors and talk a little bit about some of the diversity issues in my list. Let's get into this. And I'm actually going to be doing my top 12 because I have several that are tied for 9th place, the way that it works on Goodreads. So I'm going to give you my top ones. And it is interesting how many books I have read by some of these people. Okay, so first let's talk about, I've got 3 authors that are in the like 9, 10, 11 places, and I've read 9 books by each of these. The first one is L.M. Montgomery. She's the author of Anne of Green Gables, so I've read that entire series, and I think I've read a couple of short story collections by her as well, so 9 books from her. I have read 9 books by Sarah J. Maas. So I think the only thing by her I haven't read yet is Tower of Dawn. I've read all of her other books. I've read 9 books by Rochelle Mead. She's the author of Vampire Academy, and I didn't actually read that series, but I read the follow-up series, and then I've read some of her sort of one-off books as well. I just like her. I think she's very bingeable. Next, and you know what? To be honest, this number probably should be higher, but it says I've read 10 books by Brian K. Vaughan. He writes graphic novels, and actually I know that number is higher because I've definitely read more than 10. I've read all of the first 8 volumes of Saga. I've read all of the Last Man series as well, which is like 10 books. So yeah, that number definitely, oh, and Paper Girls. I read volume of Paper Girls. So that should probably be in the 20s actually. But as far as the ones that I've put on Goodreads, I guess it's at 10. So he actually might be like, really should probably be like my number 3 author. I should go and update that. That's really interesting. Then the next person on the list coming in at 11 books is Cassandra Clare. I have read most of her books. I've not read the latest book in the Magisterium series by Cassandra Clare and Holly Black, and I have not yet finished Lord of Shadows. And I haven't read Shadowhunter Academy, but I think I've read everything else by her, so 11 books by Cassandra Clare. I've read 11 books by Gail Carriger. I love her. She is so interesting because I find that people either love her or hate her. She has a very particular writing style. I love it. I think she's so whimsical and funny and snarky, and I just think she's great. She writes these like paranormal romances that are these like steampunk paranormal romances that are just, they're just great. She has a couple of adult series. She has one YA series. It's all set in the same world, and then some one-off novels. I haven't read the one-off novels, but I'm curious too. Then I have read 12 books by Marissa Meyer. I think I have read everything by Marissa Meyer. So all of the Lunar Chronicles, including The Wires and Nerve graphic novels, Heartless, Renegades. I've read 12 books by her. I've read 16 books by C.S. Lewis. I grew up loving Chronicles of Narnia. I've read a lot of his other books as well, and I'm a big fan. The next one is one that when I first saw it, I was like, wait a minute, who is this? I had to look and see, but I've read 20 books by Valerie Tripp. If you're wondering who Valerie Tripp is, she is the author of most of the original American Girls books, which I was super into when I was young, and I actually have quite a number of them on my shelves too. And so I think when I first started Goodreads, I added all the books I could think of that I had read, and one of those was a bunch of the American Girls series books that I read when I was younger, and some of them I've reread since. So 20 books by Valerie Tripp. I was like, who is she? Oh, American Girls series, there you go. And then my most read author is maybe a controversial one, actually. So I do want to talk a little bit about this. But my most read author is Orson Scott Card, coming in at 31 books. And let me tell you, I've not come close to reading everything that he's written. He is extremely prolific. I know that some of his political views are unpopular, and there are people who've chosen not to read his books as a result. I really like a lot of his books, and I started reading him when I was in high school, which was a long time ago. So I look younger than I am, I think, but yeah, I first picked up Ender's Game when I was in high school, and that kind of got me hooked. So I read a ton of his books, a lot of his lesser known books too. He's got a lot of stuff that he's written. Oh, siren. Okay, let's wait for this. He's written a lot of books. Like I said, controversial. Honestly, there are plenty of authors that I don't necessarily agree with all of their political views about, and so unless that is heavily creeping into their books in ways that I don't want to read, to me it's kind of two separate things. People can do what they want to do with that. I understand both sides of it, but I think he's a really good author. I don't love everything that he's written, but he's got a lot of really good stuff. Actually, one of his most obscure series that is probably my favorite is the Homecoming Saga. It's this sort of epic science fiction. It's really interesting. It's very unusual, and I loved it. I recently was thinking about this and decided I wanted to start collecting the books again, so I was really excited because I found a paperback copy of book 1 recently, and so I think I want to try to collect those and reread them at some point because I love them. I think I've read the series twice as it is. Yeah, so the Homecoming Saga, if you're interested. All right, so given that, let's talk statistics. So looking at my top 11, they are all white authors. However, the majority of them are women, which is not true for everybody. So 8 of my top 11 are women, which that's pretty good, actually. I do tend to read a lot of female authors. So I think in terms of gender representation, if anything, maybe I should read more male authors. Although, I do read male authors too. I just probably more heavily read female. But it's interesting, right, that my top are all white authors. And in fact, even looking at my top 20, there is only one author in my top 20 most read authors who is not white, and that is Marie Lu. I have read 7 books by Marie Lu, I think. Is that right? Yeah. I've read everything she's written. Not the graphic novels, but I've read Legend series, I've read the Young Elite series, I've read Warcross, I love all of it. So I've read 7 books by Marie Lu, but it is interesting to me that she is the only non-white author in my top 20. So that's a thing. And the thing is too, is I've read 7 books by her. In order to get into my top 10, I would need to read at least 9 books by somebody. So, eventually some of these people may move up the list, but there are very prolific authors that I've read a lot of that kind of make it hard to knock it out of there. Brian K. Vaughan probably should be my number 2 or 3 if I put in all of the graphic novels I've read by him, because I think I didn't always track all my graphic novels. So I'm gonna go through and look at my top 100 authors and tell you how many of them are not white. Okay, so you guys, in my top 100 most read authors, only 9 of them are non-white authors, which is pretty sad because a lot of these people I've only read 2 or 3 books by. And so, I'm actively trying to increase that number because I mean, I think that's kind of problematic. And part of it is that for a very long time, and even now, publishing has been predominantly white. The numbers are slowly starting to shift a little bit, but it, you know, that's kind of a problem. So if you're curious to know, I will tell you who the 9 authors in my top 100 are. Obviously, I talked about Marie Lu. I've read 7 books by Marie Lu. Next is one that you may not have heard of, Connie Rose Porter. She wrote the Addie books in the American Girls series. So she is an African American author. One thing that I think is really interesting is on Goodreads, they don't even have a picture of her. So like you have to know who she is to know that she's African American. But I've read 6 books by her, and those are the little like middle grade Addie books. Next is Soman Chainani. I've read 4 books by him, all of the School for Good and Evil series that he's written, which I love, by the way. Fantastic middle grade series. N.K. Jemisin is now on the list with 3 books because I have read the entire Broken Earth trilogy as of now, which I'm thinking of doing a series review video actually because it's so good. I love her. I need to read more of her, but N.K. Jemisin is on here. I've read 2 books, and soon it's going to be 3. I'm in the middle of my 3rd book by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She's also fantastic. She's really good. She's a Nigerian author. She's written Americana is the book I'm currently reading, Purple Hibiscus. I know a lot of people like We Should All Be Feminists. I haven't read that one yet, but she's really good. I've read 2 books by Jason Reynolds, also big fan, great writing. I've read 2 books by Kendar Blake. I've read 3 Dark Crowns and 1 Dark Throne, both of them are great. I know that she has written other series in the past, which I'm curious to go check out. I haven't read any of them, but if you guys have recommendations on other books she's written that are good, let me know in the comments down below. I'd be curious to know. I've read 2 books by Renee Adia, The Sword and the Dagger, or, you know, that first duology that she wrote. And then finally, I've read 2 books by Daniel Jose Older in the Shadow Shaper series, which I love. So it's interesting, right? Like 9 authors of color, not even all, and only a handful of those are Black. We've got kind of a mix of ethnicities in there, but yeah, it's an interesting thing to look at. I would say that if you have a Goodreads account, I recommend you go and check it out. Look at it. If you go into your books on the sidebar, there's a thing where you can look at most read authors, and it'll show you your list of all of your most read authors. And I just think it's interesting, and this is what I love about what Amy pointed out, is that while there's value in even just reading sort of these one-off books by authors of color, I think there's also value in reading more of their complete work. Talk to me in the comments down below. Let me know what you guys think. Who are your most read authors? What does the diversity in your most read authors look like? Yeah, I just think this is super interesting and something that I'm actively working on because I say that I want to read diverse books. I do read a lot of diverse books, but it's making me more aware of the fact that I also need to read books across the same author, not just sort of cherry picking here and there. So anyway, things to think about. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you guys like this video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to see more. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.